Nice and easy, just relax. Okay, so believe it or not, we're talking about the foot again. But what we're talking about here is really a somewhat advanced application of the foot. And I think that it overcomes some of the limitations of what I consider to be the standard training application of the foot. I've talked before about how with the foot, most people hang it over here. That's the way we're trained, we're taught. But the problem with that is, because if he were to do a palm strike, just like a Dan Chi Sao, maybe he wouldn't be that extreme, but either way, it's a palm strike. Go ahead. Up. Remember, Dan Chi Sao would aim for the forehead. That gives me something to do. So here, if he does a palm strike nice and easy so we can see it, okay, I want to stop it with this. And so before he gets up there, Dan Chi Sao teaches us that I'm going to go ahead and stop him right on the spot just by rolling back or rolling in, just like in the first form, rolling in, you could use that. If you're back further away when you make the contact, he's not really close enough to strike me. But nonetheless, I want to keep control because I have this triangle and I need to have my wrist on his wrist so that he cannot enter my triangle where I lose certain controls. It's like having a door that goes into a building. And once someone's inside, they can run anywhere they want in the building, and we don't want that. So here, what I want to do is I'm further away, and I'm not draped over, and I'm not really on top. But what I'm doing is I'm taking this point under the fatty part of my palm near the thumb, and over here the other one, and I'm kind of hooking them naturally into his bony structure here, and that's where I'm keeping them. Actually, I'm keeping them back just a hair, and it's very subtle. You want to be careful when you're rolling in Chi Sao. Roll, please. You want to be very careful not to be like up under here in order to stop him. Go ahead and see, if I were to punch, I don't want to slide up here. You'll often see that done, but that's not how I would punch, and I've lost any potential control I have for another move. So I wouldn't train the Dan Chi Sao or anything else to then, or Lap Sao, to then punch him up like this and have him block. What I would want to do is I want to control and drive in on the punch. So when he comes down, I also want to be able to, go ahead and roll, I want to be able to have a contact with him without making him feel forced and controlled. So sometimes when people are trying to find this placement, then what they'll do is, let's do it with the other arm. Sometimes when they're trying to find this placement and they roll, they're kind of forced to the center. You don't want to force another person in the basic Chi Sao rolling, because otherwise you can't express all the aspects of the exercise. Go ahead and roll. If I'm just like pushing him like that, then you're not really doing Chi Sao. It's about feeling and then seeing what comes, not about stopping and impeding no matter what. But a lot of times people, when they change and they try to come away from this, because if I'm just a hair too far away, now I could slide over him. What that means is, for instance, if he does it to me, he's got a foot, and we're here, and if he's overextended at all, it's very easy for me to get past. He can't use his wrist to stop me. And I've talked about that before. When it's a flat tan, he can control me, but 45, he could still, if we're far enough away. As soon as I get in too close, he can no longer do a proper jump. Oh man, I could just walk in on him, and he has to play catch up. So what we want to do is, when we do when his foot is here and we roll, we don't want him to control me and then come under here and hold me up to control me or something like that. It needs to be much more subtle. So what I want to do is I want to gently hook in with those two places where I have contact, and now I'm barely there, and he rolls to the time, and I'm barely there. I'm not forcing him at all. Now, I am no longer on top. I'm no longer on top the way you think of a foot application, which is here, either draped over or at least here so that you're right like that, so that if he goes to turn and do a palm strike, I can just jut him just like a Dan Chi Sao. And what I am is I'm actually right here. I'm barely catching the outside of his wrist bone, of his arm bone, the ulna there. And I'm just barely clicking into the side of it, like it's got little clickables. And now, if he does to do a slow palm strike to demonstrate, I'm not on top of it, so I'm not able to any longer as easily jut it straight down. But go ahead, I can still completely take the space. And if I needed to, I could go ahead, I could, you know, bring in my elbow, wrist, or whatever. And as long as I'm controlling here, I'm in good shape. The point is, it's a more subtle way of applying the foot, and it barely shows any touch. Give me the other arm too, and I'll just have two on top. And we're just nice and easy rolling. And you can see where my hand is. It looks like, wait a minute, it's all the way on the side. But I actually am click, just like you click into a snowboard, you know. I'm in there. And when he moves, he can hardly feel anything. He's aware that I'm there, but just vaguely. And then and you see when I use the forward energy in testing, in Chi Sao, in the rolling hands, Lux out, when I use the forward energy, I'm not going to slide over. Or if I were punching, I would, again, this way. But here, when I use forward energy, I'm not back here shoving his arm in. And yet, I still have that connection right in there against this bone in his wrist and against under the bone there. It's kind of a subtle thing. And yet, it allows me to follow him and track him. And you can see how even here, my hand is open. It looks like I'm barely doing anything. It doesn't look like I'm even there. But if he moves this arm to do a movement, I really can stop him. I really have control. So again, make those even. Here, I'm barely there. Again, down here. And then if he were to go ahead and do a palm strike, I still am right there. It's kind of like I had jut him, and I may do any kind of movement. So that's what I want to share, is about hooking in like there, and then hooking in here, kind of against this bone in his palm, in his hand, which I guess would be a carpal bone, and then hooking in right here. So I'm just barely kind of hooked in together with him. It's a subtle thing, but it makes such a huge difference. Go ahead and roll. It makes such a huge difference. Bring those shoulders forward and don't point out. Don't point out, there's nothing there, just here. This is something to always keep in mind. I find that most all students have a hard time with this, is they want to bring the bong and point the fingers out, and the energy's going out here. It needs to go just there and not turn the shoulders off. So Scott's helping us with that. It's what you get for going to Hawaii. It's an excuse I made for you. So here, this connection, and both hands now. He's got his foot. Go ahead and make a foot. He's got his foot. And now see, he doesn't want to slide over either, and he's having to work a hair harder, but he's actually made those connections there. It's not quite as subtle, but they're there. And then let's see where he is underneath. He didn't go underneath and hold me up like this. Roll. He didn't hold me up like that, like a lot of guys do when they try to change over. They get like here, and they're really roughing, and they're holding you up like just stopping you from moving. So that's what we want. And then when he does the time, he does a strike or whatever, it doesn't really matter. I can still do it. I can still jut. And it's a different application of the foot. I think of it as a much more advanced application of the foot. And thank God I'm done. Yeah, you push it until it goes.